Welcome to Excel Magic Trick number 703. Hey, if you want to download this workbook and follow along, click on my YouTube channel and click on my college website link, and you can download the workbook Excel Magic Trick 703 to 706. Wow, we have a big comprehensive video here. Here are the topics where the goal, all the different things we're doing are all because we want to extract records with 6 criteria. So here's our data set. We want to use 6 different criteria to extract some records and put them somewhere else. We're going to do 6 criteria, but everything we learn here could be applied to 2 or more, or even 1. We're going to see how to do it with a filter, advanced filter, array formula, a 2010 non-array formula. In the process, we'll see how to work date criteria for all of these, and criteria, or criteria, between criteria, and even Boolean logic. So here's our data set. Now, extracting data is one of the more common questions asked. And we're going to see filter. That is by far the most popular and easiest to do. Sometimes it takes a lot of steps, and sometimes people are building applications for other people that don't know how to use filter, so that might not work. We'll see how to use advanced filter. Formulas are ultimately the most complex, but they are the most dynamic and easy for perhaps people who don't know how to use filter and other things like that. Filter. How do you turn on filter? Data ribbon, or in earlier versions, the data menu, and then filter, or Ctrl Shift L. So our criteria, we have date. We have greater than or equal to the 18th, less than or equal to the 23rd. This is called a between criteria for filter. And the idea is that it's between these two dates. Then we have sales rep Sue. So in this column, it needs to match Sue. Customer PC. Product organic cheese. So really, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are all and. So we're going to ask the question, all of these have to be true for a particular record. But then we have or criteria. What if we want to see customer PCC in Whole Foods markets? So for example, this record matches because it's PCC. This record also matches because it's an or. It's either one or the other. We'll see how to do this and, between, and or in all 3 methods. All right, filter, super easy. You click the drop down and go to date filters. My screen, this never works very well when I'm shooting this. But date filters, before in earlier versions, you have to go to custom. And then there's our dialog box. And we say, I clicked the wrong one. In earlier versions, you actually have this, and you have to select is after. We want is after or equal to, and then is before or equal to. And so the date, we'll just select a date. The 18th is our criteria, and the 23rd. And then we click OK. Now that's filter, right? So filter just filters the records in place. You can see the blue tells you that there are some hidden rows. And our next criteria is Sue. So we simply do our drop down and then select down here off to the side. You can see we can uncheck all and then select Sue. Click OK. Here we have or. This is great. This really is much easier than when you see how we do it in the formula. We just want PCC and Whole Foods Market, one or the other. Notice this is a column here, and these are mutually exclusive categories. There's a record, and it's never going to be both PCC and Whole Food Markets International. So far, we've done, in essence, 1 criteria here between with the filter, but really it was 2, 3, 4. Now we need organic cheese. We simply select down at the bottom organic cheese, and then click OK, which is off the screen down there. And there you have your filtered data. Really, a lot of people in the world do filtering or do extract records this way because it's so easy. It doesn't take much to learn how to use these filters. And when you highlight it, copy, notice I used Control C there. But notice only the cells that are not hidden are being copied. Right? You can tell because these are visible cells. The dancing ants are marching around only the visible cells. Once you've copied, you come over, you click in one cell, and then Control V. So that is by far the most popular method for extracting data, and certainly it is easy. Now, advanced filter. Now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to use Ctrl Shift L. It's just a toggle to filter that. Now, notice I didn't put any records over here. I very carefully placed them down here. And when we do our formulas in just a moment, we're never going to put anything here, because when you filter, it hides rows. Now, advanced filter. Advanced filter is just a little bit different, and oftentimes people do it when they have lots of complex criteria. The only trick to advanced filter is the difference between and or. This is an and criteria is always on one line. So sales rep, this and this. It means this has to be true and this has to be true for a particular record, like this one right here. But if you have an or, you have to jump down one line. Now, if you just have or, you just use different lines. But here we have and or. So this is our or. So because we have an and, we had to repeat all of the data. So in essence, for advanced filter, you have to repeat everything. Whoops, repeat everything here, and just change these two items. So that makes it and or. Okay. The other thing is, when you're doing a between criteria like this, you have to repeat the field names for advanced filter. Still further, when you have your names here, this defines what goes here. If you don't have the exact same field name, including no extra spaces or anything, it won't work. So all of these have to be exactly the same. So we're going to repeat the date, put the two dates, and we're ready to go. We click in our data set, and we go to data. There it is. In the earlier versions, data filter, advanced filter, right? The keyboard shortcut in this version is Alt-AQ. Filter list in place. No, I want to copy it to another location. It's got the right data set. I'm going to get my criteria. Got to include the field names and the criteria and an or. Copy to. I'm going to select this cell right there and then click OK. Just like that, we have it. So some people like advanced filter because you can explicitly see all the criteria here. And once you have it set up, right, and you know how to do Alt-AQ, it's pretty darn easy to just dump it down there. So that's filter and advanced filter. Now on to formulas, which are a lot more complex. And this is going to be great. I've done other videos for data extract. Never one with 6 criteria. And we will get to see how to mix and or criteria using Boolean logic, Boolean math, to get our trues and falses for both and or. Now, I'm going to actually hide some rows here. Let's see if I can right-click hide. All right. OK, so we can kind of see everything here. We have our criteria, our extract area. Now, if this was a huge data set, you'd obviously put it somewhere else. But this is just I'm squishing it on the screen, and I have a small data set so we can see how everything works. The first thing is, if you're extracting data, right, and you want this formula dynamic, so anytime you change anything up here, it changes down here. And that's the main reason that people learn how to do these array formulas or go have someone else do it for them, because it is so automatic. You just, as soon as you change this, everything changes. You don't have to do advanced filter or anything. All right, first we're going to have to count, right? We already can see from our other two methods there's 2 records, so we need a dynamic count here. Remember, there's 6 criteria and one of them's an or. So let's see how to do this. We're going to do SUMPRODUCT. And we're not going to use double negative like we usually do. We're just going to multiply, using Boolean logic, all the arrays of trues and falses. Let's just start at the beginning. And by the way, oops, didn't mean to do that. And criteria, when you're using Boolean logic, we'll use multiplying. This array of trues and falses times this array of trues and falses. When you're doing or, you add. And these are mutually exclusive categories, which means we're never going to get a count of 2, which makes it a little bit easier. All right, our first logical test is, hey, is anything in the date column? So I'm going to click there, Ctrl Shift Enter, and I'm going to hit F4, because we're going to use the same logic down here in our data extract formula. Whenever that's equal to, I'm sorry, greater than or equal to the low end date. And I'm going to hit F4 on that. All right, so there's our first series of trues and falses. And we can highlight this and hit F9. Highlight this and hit F9. Boop, and you see you get your trues and falses. And we'll use the same setup for each one of these and multiply them. And only when you get a true times a true in the same position in the next array will you get a true overall. So multiplying is for and, Control Z. All right, so we're going to multiply. And then another one, and it's same range right here, the date range. And this is less than or equal to this, F4. Times, in the next condition, we're talking about sales rep. So I come down here, Control Shift down arrow, F4. Anytime that is equal to Sue, F4. Okay, so far we have 3 and criteria using multiplying times. The next one is O. We have an OR. Now, I'm going to go ahead and do this product one first so we get all the ands in a row. It doesn't matter at all, though. In fact, forget it. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do the OR. Now, multiplying is for and. We're going to have to do 2 separate tests. So I'm going to in open parentheses and go down and get this column right here, F4. Anytime that is equal to, I'm going to copy that because I'm going to use that again, this, F4. Be sure to lock all these because we're going to use them down below. And now I close parentheses, and then I plus. Now, the reason you have to close parentheses because the order of operations when Excel evaluates equal sign and plus. Plus comes before equal sign. So we want to do all the trues and falses before. So that's why we had to put it in parentheses to force the equal operation to happen before the plus. All right, and then Control V. And I'm going to say is equal to that one. So notice we're adding here F4 to lock it. Now get this. If there's a true here for PCC, the associated position over here is never going to get a true. So we're always going to get true plus false. When you add those together, it's 1. Anytime we get a true over here, Whole Foods Market International, we're never going to get one over here. So we're going to get 1 plus 0. Now, if you happen to have overlapping categories, which means they're not mutually exclusive, you'd have to do something different. You'd simply, because you could get a count of 2, you'd simply have to take this and say anytime that's greater than equal to 1. No, sorry, greater than 0. But that's not the case here, right? Because we could get a 2 or a 1 if these were not mutually exclusive. But just in case you have that situation, that's what you do. All right, so there it is. We can even, I'm going to close parentheses on this and highlight this and hit the F9 key. You can see we get a bunch of trues and a bunch of trues, meaning they're either or. So it looks like there's only one record that's not PCC or Whole Food Markets. Control Z. Now, one trick that we're going to have to do here. This is an OR, right? What if, since we want this dynamic, what if we wanted to delete PCC or this? That would leave a blank here. Well, that would cause no problems whatsoever. If we deleted this and this was a blank, then the formula would say, is anything in here blank? The problem might arise if you have blanks here. Now, if your data set has never had blanks, then this works perfect. But just in case it does, all we have to do is add another logical test here, which is are anything down over there equal to blank. So, or actually not blank. So I'm going to say for a true. So I'm going to say times, and then say anything here. It has to be an F4, not less than, greater than, blank, double quote. It has to be not blank to be included. And that little part right here is just in case we delete any of these, right? Instead, maybe somebody later just wants to see just PCC. All right. Now, so we have our ands and our ors. Finally, we have our last little organic cheese one here. So we times, open parentheses, and this one right here. Anytime that one is equal to this one, F4. All right, so there we have it. And the act of any operation on a Boolean true, false will convert it to ones and zeros. So for example, double negative divided by 1 times 1. We're multiplying. So anytime, we don't even need the 1. Just the act of multiplying will give us all the ones and zeros that we want. Now, if I highlight this and hit F9, you can see record number 2 and 4 should be the ones that we extracted. And sure enough, that one and that one right there are the ones that are extracted. So this is accounting, because this formula down here is going to depend on the fact that we counted them in advance. Control Z. Now, while I have it highlighted, I'm going to copy, because we're going to use this exact logical structure that collapses down to zeros and ones will be used down here. Enter. So we have 2. See, if I was to change this, then there would be only 1 and a blank there. Control Z. Now, here's our formula to extract, equals if. And I'm going to use rows, our number incrementer. I'm sitting in B18. So B $18 colon B18. As we copy this down, it will increment the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. Anytime that count is greater than this F4, then we want to show a blank. That means when we get past row 2, 1, 2, all these will be blank. Otherwise, and now we need to do our, in essence, look up. The array, now think about this. We have date, sales rep, so we want to extract all of the data for all the records. So in this column, we're only interested in that right there. F4 once and twice. That way, the row is locked. So when we copy our formula down, it's locked on this. But when we copy it this way, it moves to the next column. OK, there's our extract area, our lookup in essence. Now the row number. We have lots of row numbers. Or actually, we have 2 in our case. We have more than 1. So we need to use the small function to successively get the earliest row number, then the next earliest, etc. Now, the array here, we're going to say if. And our logical test, remember, we got a string of zeros and ones from this formula up here that indicated perfectly the position. There was a 1 at the second record and a 1 at the fourth record. So we can use inside the small if and just paste that whole big thing right there. That's pretty amazing. That's got and or criteria. So that's the logical test. Well, what in the world do we want to go into the index? Because remember, we're right there, the row number. And the index needs a row number here. Well, sure enough, we need the row number. So we're just going to get all the row numbers, because the small has an if there, right, with exactly the logic we need. So row of, and you can pick whichever one you want. I'm going to pick that one, the first one, F4. Now, that won't work because that's row 30 to 31. So we subtract from it row of 30, F4. Now that's 30 minus 30, so we have to add 1 back in. And that'll give us our string of 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. There's the value of true. We don't need false, so we close the parentheses. Finally, as we go down, we need to extract the right row numbers. So we simply use our formula incrementer again right there, OK. Close parentheses on the small. Close parentheses on the index, because we don't need the column. And close parentheses on the if. That is the false. Ctrl Shift Enter. And then I'm going to copy it over. I'm going to point to the fill tag and say fill without formatting. I'm going to Ctrl Shift 4 to add some dollars there. I'm going to highlight all the formulas and copy them down. Now let's test. We can see. Control Z. Let's change this to the 26. And that's why people like to use formulas, because it's just as automatic as you can get. Now Control Z, one last method. And I'm just actually going to scoop this like this. I put it into edit mode, highlight, copy, escape. Come over here. I'm going to paste that over there. And then I'm going to copy this whole thing, because this formula was entered with Ctrl Shift Enter, because it's got all sorts of arrays in it. That's an array formula. You can see the curly brackets are automatically added in. But in 2010, we have an alternative to the small function with all those arrays. I'm going to Control V. And what we're interested in is the logical two parts. Instead of using the small if construction, we can use the aggregate function, which does, in essence, the small for us. And we won't have to use Ctrl Shift Enter. I'm going to highlight all of that logical test right to there. It's the same piece we had before. And I'm going to Control CC. That opens up the clipboard. I'm actually going to clear. Control C. If you don't have it open, then you'd have to go there and use that. And I'm going to highlight this row section just to right there. Control C. Now I have two parts. And I'm going to replace all of this up to the small. I'm going to hit the delete key, because this is the part that requires Control Shift Enter. Delete. And now instead of small, I'm going to use aggregate. And aggregate has, as one of its options, you can see right there, 15 is small. Okay, and then comma, since we're going to have some potential errors, we're going to use 6 down here. In that drop down, it says ignore errors. And then comma. Notice it says array right there. The aggregate, if you take the row part of our array formula in parentheses and divide it by all the trues and falses, it will give us an array of the row numbers we need. So I'm going to, in open parentheses, and I'm going to click on, the row number right here. Okay, so I got that inside of parentheses, close parentheses, divided by, and then open parentheses, and this huge thing we have here. Close parentheses. I don't know why that index function, I may be doing something wrong here. Did I get it? Oh, there's aggregate. There's 5. We got that divided by that, and I close parentheses. Now, yeah, I'm in the wrong aggregate. So okay, there's the array. I got that. Okay, so I have to backspace. I have one too many. Okay, there we go. The brown one and the brown one. And then this one right here all the way to there. And so now I'm still in the array. So that's pretty tricky right there. That's why these screen tips just help. I was warned there because I was seeing the index screen tip, and that wasn't the right place, and I had an extra parentheses. All right, and then finally for the K, we have our rows. All the rest is the same. And this, I just hit Enter. Copy it over. Smart tag, fill without formatting, Control Shift 4, and then copy it down. Now I'm going to test this one more time for the aggregate. 6. Come over here, see if that works. And sure enough, so there you have it. Can you believe it? There's so many different ways. We did filter, by far the easiest. I use it all the time. Advanced filter, again, pretty awesome if you have lots of criteria. And finally, 2-1 array formula with and or criteria, and the aggregate function as well. All right, we'll see you next trick.